Hello, and welcome to In the Light, Growing Your Soul with me, Anna Isabel. And I'm so pleased because today I have Michael Hutchinson with me. Hello, Michael.
Hello.
It's such an important topic, the topic of your book. And just the title is Breath for Health.
That's correct. Yes.
So maybe it would be good to start with what led you to writing such a book? After all, we all breathe.
Sure. My own experience with learning how to breathe more deeply and effectively results from the time that I was a personal student of a man called Paul Harvey back in the 1980s. And while I was training with him to be a yoga therapist. And during that time, I was given to practice every day um, a what's called a pranayama practice. Pranayama being that aspect of yoga, as you know, which deals with breathing. And I experienced the results. I experienced that my breathing capacity was increasing at a time in my life when it might otherwise have been starting to decline. And also, I suddenly found that in confrontational situations, my breath would intervene to help me rather than the other way around. And that way, I was able to respond to those situations and to respond, in a way that I could both, as I experienced at the time, both think and feel at the same time. To many people, that may seem obvious, child's play, but I think there are a lot of people who are either very controlled or very emotional, and somehow we need to be neither or both. And the breath does that.
I don't think it is child's play at all, because if it was, there would have been no need for your book. And there is a great need for it.
Thank you.
Um, so why is breath so important? Beyond the fact that it brings oxygen in and lets carbon dioxide out, and we need that to be alive. Why is it so important? Because it's not the only reason why it matters.
Consciously or not, Anna, um, the mind is aware of how we are breathing all the time. And so the way that we're breathing affects our perception of stress, for example. So if our breathing is shallow and rapid, the subconscious mind interprets that as we're being in a stressful situation. If, on the other hand, we have the capacity to breathe deeply and slowly, that is not only more relaxing, is also more efficient. Also, we need to learn to breathe through our noses all the time. Obviously, I'm breathing out through my mouth while I'm speaking, but otherwise not. That is important for for health, because if we're shallow breathing through our mouths, then we will become dehydrated unconsciously. And we all know how bad that is for our health generally. There's just a few things. It's a big topic.
There are, and I've heard a lot about the issue of breathing through the mouth instead of the nose, and the way in which it can actually affect um, things that we never think of.
Ah,
Um, so it's a really it's a fundamental thing that if we're not breathing through our nose, uh, there is an issue there that needs to be addressed. So sometimes I've heard about, mouths being taped at night and so on to retrain breathing through the nose. So why is this so important, Michael?
Well, the nose does a number of things. As you breathe in, the air is filtered, it's humidified, and also the paranasal sinuses, that we have here in the head, they inject minute quantities of a gas called nitric oxide, which, as well as being a fungicide, which is, we important, particularly in the elderly when immune systems are not as strong as they once were. And this nitric oxide also helps with the surface tension at the alveolar level, actually where the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide takes place. Also, breathing through the nose, we tend to breathe more slowly. And actually, if you look into the advice given to people with COPD and the people who have damaged lungs, they are often told to breathe out more slowly because this helps to keep the air passages open and actually gives the exchange of gases longer to take place. So it helps them to use their limited lung function. So what works for them must work even more for those of us who have healthy lungs.
There's so much in what you're saying about the actual importance of the function of breathing slowly. And many people who are listening will have experience of or witnessed the importance of taking deep breaths in order to calm down. Um, Tell us about that.
Well, it's not so much, deep breaths, depth is good, but the important thing is to be able to breathe out slowly. I mean, this is the advice given to people who have stage nerves. No, no, slowly blow out a candle. Breathing into a paper bag isn't quite so recommended these days. I'm But certainly, slow pursed lip exhalation is one permissible way of breathing out through the mouth. Just because it is a way of consciously slowing down the out breath. It's a focus.
The business about breathing out slowly is one that I find my clients really struggle with. So when I'm teaching people to take deep breaths and to just hold the breath for a moment and then very slowly release it,
Mm.
means of relaxing into a hypnotic state.
Ah.
The thing they struggle with always
Mm.
is the breathing out slowly. Why do you think that is?
People are anxious about the anxiety about breathing, and this is partly learned and partly innate, is the anxiety is about oxygen. Be told all the time, breathing this way, you will get more oxygen. I was mentored for a while by Professor Kim Parker at Imperial College. And he told me that all these claims about you know, breathe this way and you'll get more oxygen to the brain, are bogus. He said that oxygen delivery to the brain is prioritized over the rest of the body and very carefully controlled. There is nothing you could or should do to influence it, but people are still concerned. So perhaps it needs to be addressed at the level of resolving people's anxiety. What the way perhaps, and this is what our teacher, Mr. Days Gachar, how he would have approached it, I'm sure. And also this is how, if you've heard of Professor Konstantin Buteyko, so he would have said the same independently, is for people to gradually develop the capacity to pause after breathing out. If they can't manage breathing out slowly, Anna, why not ask them to just pause, see if they can pause for a few seconds before breathing in. So that's a sort of another way round it. And then when people have developed the capacity, say they're breathing out for 4 seconds, and then they develop the capacity to pause for 4 seconds, we say, well, why don't you extend the out breath into that pause? And then you're breathing out for 8 seconds. It's sort of sometimes, teaching breathing or teaching any form of yoga, we have to be sneaky.
So why is it that we are needing to be taught how to breathe? Why do we breathe badly? What is going on?
I've tried to think about this, and I'm not sure how very well this has been researched. So I'm just going by what I was told by a very experienced physiotherapist who's worked a lot with families, which is that she sees in families that people tend to have the same sort of faulty breathing. Almost as if, breathing patterns are sort of inherited. And I think this is because we're natural copycats. I mean, and this is what she thinks, and that, when we're young, we copy the way other people breathe, either consciously or unconsciously. Also, various stresses in life. People, you think you might be aware of the work of Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. And I don't know if you've read his book, The Body Keeps the Score. But when we have suffered some kind of trauma or grief within our lives, this is held in the body, and sometimes is often held in place in the middle of the body. Can be elsewhere, but if it's held there, that will restrict the breathing. And that thereafter, we will tend to breathe more shallowly, because to start taking deeper breaths would bring that feeling back. My old mantra teacher, Muz Murray, talked about the fear of the unfelt feeling. Those things that feelings that we've pushed down over the years.
Tell us more about that.
Well, certainly from my own experience, this is one of the things that I went through in my initial training with Paul Harvey. Now, I remember certain sorts of deep breathing made me feel slightly nauseous. But my biggest experience was with Muzz, and I used to go every year in July to his 4-day chanting retreats on Dartmoor. And one year I was under I was what's the term? I was being examined. I'd reported feeling pain in the sort of, gallbladder area, and I had ultrasound tests, and it was hard for them to find anything, but I was still, quite often getting this pain in the pit of the stomach. And during one particular chanting session, this pain kept getting worse and almost unbearable. But I resolved to carry on chanting, and then the pain went away and never came back. So I think that was something that was held, still being held on, you know, in terms of some previous trauma, and then it was just resolved. So these things can happen. I've also seen if you examples, teaching, someone starts breathing more deeply than they're accustomed, tears start to come out. And then all I can do then as a yoga teacher or therapist is encourage that person to keep breathing, let it out, and not to worry about why it's happening, not to try to analyze, just let it be, let it out. And this is how yoga works. Yoga is not analytic. Yoga is body work. And feeling comes out, the pain comes out, and sometimes we get an insight into what that was, and sometimes we don't. But whatever it is, we're not holding on to it anymore.
What you're describing is very interesting because it's one thing to say that we hold on to emotion in our body
Mhm.
and that pain can be as a result of trauma held in the body.
Yeah.
But for some, it's going to seem like a leap to think that we can just breathe this away. So tell us about that. What is that process?
Well, I've really given a hint already, Anna, that this can happen simply through deeper breathing. But also, if we add the making of a sound, a very simple sound, to that out breath, there's something about that. It doesn't have to be a sound with any particular meaning, but there has to be an idea that the deeper that we can feel that the sound is coming from, if we can feel the sound is coming from a deep place, then it's likely that it will help to resolve something. None of these things can be predicted. These things happen in their own good time. Any sort of release like that will happen when something inside us feels that the time, the place, the people that we're with, the setting is right, and also our own mindset. It's is what they say for psychedelic experiences, set and setting, and something may happen in its in its own good time.
Well, you talk about a sound being accompanying the breath. And it just made me think about laughter. When we laugh out loud, that's an example of an emotion that's being released, expressed through, you
Yes.
know, through sound. And then you think about how sometimes people make sounds when they're frustrated, that kind of thing. So it
Yeah.
is something that we
Yeah.
do quickly.
Yeah. Yes. I remember Muz used to have us all lie down in a circle with each of us had his or her head on another person's stomach, and he told one person to, first person starts laughing, and then it sort of goes all round the circle like that. So yes, um, laughter is actually, belly laughter is actually one instance when people are using their breathing apparatus correctly. So I encourage it.
So, okay, I think we need to talk mechanics
All
because we've
right.
breathed deeply and then breathe out slowly.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by breathe deeply?
So an issue which I often see, Anna, is that I have a student in a lying position. Okay. For example, the lady asked her to put her hands over her tummy, feel the tummy lift with the in-breath, fall with the out-breath. It's fine. Um, so in that case, you know the breathing is deep. If you can see the tummy lift and lower, you know that there's deep breathing going on there in a lying position. I asked that person to sit up, and that breathing into the tummy ceases. She goes back to her habitual, restricted, shallower chest breathing. Okay. Reason for this is that there's a synergy that's supposed to exist between the respiratory diaphragm, that divides the upper and lower parts of the body, and the abdominal muscles, okay? The transverse abdominal muscles, the ones that go that go sort of round like a belt, okay, like a wide belt. So no muscle in the body will take any part of your body into a position if there isn't what's called an antagonist to return your body, that part of your body, to its starting position. Okay, so muscles always tend to work in pairs. Respiratory diaphragm is paired with these transverse abdominals, this wide belt across the front and sides, so that the diaphragm knows if it pushes down and pushes the tummy out, that there will be some response and the tummy won't be left in that position. Okay. You know that the abdominal muscles will automatically contract and help the diaphragm to slowly relax, help the lungs to relax, and the breath to come out slowly and smoothly. Okay. Now, there are a number of reasons, I think, that this synergy tends to be lost. Students have reported to me that they've been told in their youth to hold their tummies in. And of course, if they've been told to do that, that stops this synergy from taking place. Also, for women, this synergy can be lost during pregnancy, I suppose. It may, not necessarily, but it may happen. All sorts of things. It may just be, there seems to be a gradual loss of tone in the body as we get older. I remember my doctor complaining to me that his chest had slipped, but he's sitting in his chair seeing patients all day. It's not a very active role. And in that situation, I think there can be a little bit of, if you don't use it, you lose it. So, but in my, in my book, Breath for Health, I have a simple exercise to have people to recover this synergy. And then I hope that by repeating it every day, just for a few minutes a day, that gradually this will come back. And then as I said, in a confrontational situation, as I found, we get this depth of breath. This depth of breath. Depth of breath somehow enables one to feel connected internally.
Well, we know that the depth of breath can shift us from being the sympathetic nervous system being dominant to the parasympathetic nervous system. So there's something, it's like a switch that is flipped when we start breathing deeply and we go straight into that more relaxed state of being. As I was listening to you, I was thinking about people's speech patterns.
Uh-huh.
And I was thinking about breath in the context of speech, because there are people out there who you would swear do not breathe as they speak. It sounds like a machine gun rattling off the words, and there's no breath in there. And then there are those who are very nasally, or it's very clear that there's not a lot of breath happening. Do you have any way of addressing that? Because these are things that are so incredibly subconscious. We're not even aware of it. But I guess what I'm saying is, if people are wondering about their breath, perhaps looking at speech patterns, their own speech patterns, might indicate something about what's going on.
I remember, Anna, many years ago, I used to belong to a teacher's circle in the Reading area, and every summer people used to close down their classes because too many students were on holiday. But one of my colleagues organized these summer classes, so a different teacher every week in the same venue. And I went along once as a student, and one of my colleagues was teaching. And you've heard of something called the female register, I think, where certain women, speak in this very light and hesitant sort of way. And this is my late colleague Patricia, this is how she used to speak. And the person on the mat next to me, after she's finished speaking, after she's finished teaching, said, "Oh, that was good. I wouldn't expected such a good lesson from such an inexperienced teacher." And I thought, what on earth could have made this person next to me think that Patricia was inexperienced? She'd been teaching longer than I had. And the only thing I could think about was a quality of her voice. Now, being able to breathe more deeply, take more breath, there's a different quality that comes into the voice. There's a depth that comes into the voice. There's voice what you say becomes more convincing, because I assume you've heard of Dr. Stephen Porges and his polyvagal theory. And when his more popular version of his book came out, I sort of devoured it. because he explains how the things that we hear subconsciously in people's voices determine how convinced we are by what they say. Okay? So some people can talk, as you say, in a very high nasal voice with no depth at all. And after they finish speaking, everybody forgets what they said. But if someone speaks with depth, then that resonates with people.
The impact of how we speak on others is very clear. And, it used to be, I think it's less so now because film is different to theater, that actors were taught how to breathe in order to be able to project, but also to sound like they were taking command of the stage.
Yes.
And so I think again, the only reason I raised the issue is
Yes,
because for people who are listening and are wondering about their own breathing, if they become aware of their speech patterns,
mm-hmm.
I think it'll give them a hint as to how they are breathing.
I see. Yes. People, the trouble is, Anna, I don't think people tend to hear their own voices in the way that they don't hear themselves in the way that other people hear them. Okay. You know, I mean, Robert Burns said to see ourselves as others see us, but we have a problem hearing ourselves as others hear us. So what it was, and then when, you know, camcorders came along, and it was a shock to many people to watch and listen to the recordings, to see themselves, to hear themselves. And so I think this is something that has to be fed back to you somehow, quite often.
Or people could be brave enough to switch on the mic in their phone and just
Yes, they
know,
could.
because
Yeah.
because I think that the spirit in which this is done is to gather information. So for everyone listening,
Sure.
wants to understand more about the mechanics of how they are currently breathing and
Mm-hmm.
what breath pattern is. These are all different ways in which they can gather information and see, because sometimes it's easier to use um, an external means
Yes.
than to be aware. It's some people just need that external feedback because
Yes.
I find it very difficult to tune into their breath any other way. So that's why I thought about it.
Well, Anna, you've just given a massive plug to yoga therapy. Okay. To breathing therapists like myself, because we do the listening, we do the observation, we and we don't just tell people, look, I'm sorry, you're breathing wrongly. We tell people, well, maybe try this exercise. Okay. Maybe go away and go away and do a little of this every day. So, and also this has brought to mind two things. First of all, there's no point in increasing people's anxiety about how they breathe, because I think for most people, it's already there. And we don't want to increase it. And the second thing is that learning to breathe better, or breathe more effectively, is a gradual process. It's step by step. One of the really positive things that people have noticed about my book, Breath for Health, is it is step by step. Okay. So you work through the exercises until you come to something that's a challenge. And then you work with that for a while before you move on. So it's just start from the basics and then spend time with the first sticking point that you come to, because every step that you take with improving your breathing is an improvement. Okay, it's like an evolutionary process. No, we don't go suddenly from one thing. There's no jump from poor breathing to optimal breathing.
That's right. And that is exactly what I was coming to is, your book is absolutely brilliant
Thank
because
you.
it is so simple to follow step by step. And it's just so important. I was wondering about posture. To what extent is posture an issue that stops us from breathing in the best way? Or is it the other way around? Is it not breathing in the best way that affects posture? It's the chicken and egg question.
It is actually, it is chicken and egg. Our teacher, Mr. Daysgoodshire, pointed out many years ago, very soon after he got married and brought his new wife into the house, his father um, wanted her to learn some yoga to be part of the family. And Daisy and his father noticed very quickly that that Menaka was very flexible in her limbs. Okay, but in the trunk of the body, she was stiff. So the way that they found to address this was through the breath. So breathing exercises will improve the flexibility in the trunk of the body. They will improve the posture of the trunk of the body, and that will improve the breathing. So it goes like this, improve breathing, improve posture, improve breathing.
The two go very well together.
They do.
So just to remind everyone, the book that we are discussing is Breath for Health. And there it is. It is a wonderful step-by-step guide to help everyone improve their breathing, and clearly the importance of breathing in the best, most effective way
Yes.
has benefits for both the body and the emotions, because as we've heard, it can
Oh,
help us
yes.
release emotions. So it's a very important aspect of well-being in every respect. So
Certainly.
Michael, uh, thank you so much for your time today. If people want to find you so that they can actually benefit from your teaching directly, how could they do that?
All right. So can I put this in the chat? If I can
If you
find it.
just if you just tell me what it is, I'll be putting it in the description box.
All right. So I have a website for the book. which is breath, figure 4, yoga, no breaks. So no, wait a moment, go back. I jumped ahead there. Breath, figure 4, health, dot yoga.
Okay. And is that a .com, .co.uk? It's
It's www.breathforhealth.yoga.
That's it. Okay, lovely. I'll be putting a link to that in the description box.
Yeah, and people, there's a sign up there.
Great. And I'll also be putting a link to the book. So thank you so much, Michael, once
My
again.
pleasure.
And thank you all for watching. Next time, we're going to continue on the theme of healing, but this time with sound. Until then, goodbye.